Mm. So, welcome to my Moon Power Musings. And today we are joined by Chantal Blake. And Chantal is a holistic menstrual health educator and the author of Peaceful Periods and holistic womb care for teens. And thank you, Chantal. I'm so excited to talk to you. I really, really feel this piece around educating teenagers on periods and period health and period skills is just so important and so needed. And I always think I can't even say the amount of times that I've said it or thought it of I wish I had learnt this at school. No. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, I'm much like you. I've heard it so much. I've said it so much. Had I known this sooner, what could have been? We're learning too little, too late, as I often say. So yeah, I really appreciate feeling the call and having the capacity to respond to it and put this work in the world.
Yes. And so how did you get into this work?
I started out, oh goodness. So I would say probably my first career was in nursing. I was always drawn to medicine and wellness. My mom is a nurse and I just wanted to be like her. So I said, I'm going to go to the same college as her. I'm going to be a nurse like her.
Oh.
And then by the time I got towards the end of my high school years, I think I started to cultivate my own vision. And I was like, I want to be a doctor. I want to serve people who are in need. And so that call to serving was really strong from the time I was around 15 or 16. And then I got to college and I started as pre-med and I realized, oh, wow, the world is a lot more complicated than I thought. There are injustices and politics, and it's not as simple as just go help people. It's a lot more intricate and integrated in terms of how to serve and meet people's needs. And I found out about the need for safe drinking water. So then I said, I need to do something about the lack of clean drinking water. So I finished my undergrad and graduate work in environmental engineering. I worked in that field and then I got married. I started traveling. And when I became a mom, I was like, no, this is how, this is such a huge part of how we serve the world. It's literally bringing forth peaceful, loved, compassionate human beings who are going to be the people of truth and justice and giving, and they're not going to be the warmongers. They're not going to be selfish. Like, we literally change the future by birthing this vision of what we want the world to be in our own wombs and in our own households. And it really moved me deeply. And what, as a mom, I just like, we just need so much more support. There's not enough support for mothers, and seeing that mothers are really struggling and not getting the care that they need. And then that took me down the thread of womb wellness, hormonal wellness, cycle syncing, that led me to abdominal massage, vaginal steaming. And I really was struck by the simplicity of vaginal steaming and how much it was impacting and shifting so many things in women. I feel like so much converges in the pelvis. It's not just the period, our sense of safety,
Mm.
our shame, our sense of belonging and embodiment, all of that converges in the pelvis. And so I just thought it was like, I'm just going to help people have less painful periods and heal after birth. I'm going to offer vaginal steaming. In the place where I lived, I was living in Oman at the time, near UAE. And I just thought, I'm going to just have this in-person vaginal steaming business and help the women in my community. And then it was 2020 and I couldn't be in the community. I had to be on Zoom and online and talking through screens. And as I progressed and became more of an educational platform as opposed to an in-person service provider, I realized, oh, it's so much bigger than just painful periods and difficult postpartum recovery. It is a much larger and broader conversation about all the information we don't know
Mhm.
We come into womanhood without understanding the value of menstruation. We have no clue about the um, period as a fifth vital sign. We don't know how to care for our hormonal balance. We don't even recognize what that means and how to support ourselves. And so I just kept seeing like I had to keep doing more education to really move forward with people. And that's when that real clear gap of we just need to scrap, whatever we know about period education, we just need to build it anew, start all over. And yes, I do that education with women, but it's so important to me that we intervene earlier and just let young women start their menstrual health journey from a place of normalizing peaceful, pain-free,
Mm.
balanced periods and let that be the default and the norm. And when we deviate from that, have the tools to get back to it.
Oh my goodness. I'm just getting chills, and I also just feel so emotional. Like it's we were talking about this, and um it's like so important to have this information as we're growing up. And the amount of times I've said, I wish I had learnt this at school. I wish I had learnt this at school. And it's like listening to you and also reading the beginning of your book. Like I'm like on the verge, because it's like every cell of my body knows how important this is, and
Mhm.
how beautiful to be able to teach teenagers from the time that they start menstruating, like the importance of our period, like that the womb is powerful, that our blood is sacred, that our cycle is to be honored as well, and that we can weave in resting and the right way to eat and all of these things. And it's like when I think back to the time when I had my period, I just remember like feeling like, oh, I'm scared, and like, oh, I got my period. I remember crying, but then I don't
Mm,
remember so much else. And then I just remember like the sanitary bins at school and the smell, like that's really imprinted on my memory. But
mm,
I certainly do not have any recollection of that this is important, and this is stepping into womanhood, and this is powerful, and this is your fertility. Like, and
yeah.
I love so much of what you said of, birthing the new world is birthing compassionate, loving, loved children into the world.
Mhm.
And to have that as a baseline, as like, wow, this is really beautiful. This is
Mm,
like, I mean, I think the only word I can really think of is actually sacred. That's
mm,
what it truly feels to be. Often times I meet like teenagers or young girls, and they're like, ooh, and like periods, or like vaginas, yuck, and they're all like yuck, and then I'm like,
mhm.
no, it's amazing. And then I think, okay, how shall I talk to them? So how do you talk
Mm,
to teenagers to get the message
mm,
across, and in a way that includes and is talking to them in their language?
yeah. I think it was really relevant that my first child is a girl, she's 13 now. So I have a teen. And when I released the book last year, yes, last year was her first year menstruating. And even though I had been working on the book for about 3 years, from concept and outline to publication, I think it was so timely that it was really converging in that same year that I'm actually seeing this whole new paradigm for what it can be like to feel good about your period, to see the power of it, the sanctity of it, and to not have all of the shame, the taboo, and all of the stuff that we take on attached to it. And so with my daughter, I look at her and I'm just like, this is so different from what my friends and my peers and I experienced, and I love every part of it. So initially I started a little circle for her and all of her peers because we've traveled a lot. We've lived in several different countries in the past, for me at least the past 15 years. And so a lot of her closest friends are not in the same place anymore. So I had this virtual circle that was for preteens because all of them were in that 11 to 13, and you knew their period would be starting soon. And I said, well, I want her to really cross over with the cohort. So I started the circle for her and her friends. And I feel like starting at the preteen age is really the perfect time because they really haven't taken on the drama and the story that a lot of girls who already have their period are just kind of regurgitating and parroting how, oh, it stinks, it's horrible, you know. They don't really know what's on the other side of that veil yet.
Yeah.
So there's some curiosity, but not a lot of content yet. And what I found with that preteen age, that kind of 10 to 12, is that there's still so much curiosity. So there's just tons of questions. Well, I think I heard this. And what's this about? Is it really like this? And because they're in such a curious state, they haven't closed up yet.
Mm.
When I would do workshops for teens who were already menstruating, they would have like 0 questions. They were already closed up because somehow, some way they knew that you don't talk about this openly. This is not an open, common, everyday conversation. So I would get good feedback from them, like this was really interesting. It was fascinating. I learned a lot of new things, but there wasn't a lot of open dialogue. I think they were receiving and processing it, but still like, how is this so different from what I've believed and been taught for so long? So I think there's like a little bit of dissonance, like maybe it's just her, maybe she's just the weird one. Whereas I find that younger girls, they're just like, my sister said this, or I saw that, or my mom, like there's just so much openness and I love it. So I actually feel like if we start the education before
Mm.
it really starts to get serious for them, we can be playful about it and we can, explore and have really fruitful dialogue. So that little cohort was fun because, we were able to talk about why do we even have periods and what does that mean to ovulate? Is it useful? How can we parallel that to what we see in nature, right? Why do we have so many eggs if we're never going to have that many babies? And we could just kind of explore it from that curiosity and that kind of looking at ourselves as a reflection of nature and realizing that reproduction is so important that our body spends a lot of time practicing and perfecting it. And so I think a lot of parents are afraid to talk about reproduction because they think it's going to naturally lead to conversations around sex. And you'd be surprised that, that correlation, that sexualization of
Mm.
womanhood, menstruation, reproduction, it's not always there yet. Like sometimes that's in our minds more prevalently than it is for youth. So with the preteens, it's fun, it's curious, it's engaging. And I find with teens, the way that I'm able to kind of pry or open the conversation is just to give them stories. So I really like to present some of the ways that Monarch is recognized and celebrated around the world. So I like to share stories of how different cultures have different rites of passage, whether they are rituals, songs, parties, celebrations, what it means to different people and different cultures, and then just to have them kind of sit with that, like, how does that compare to your experience? Which of those stories feel like a story that you wouldn't mind adopting or practicing, when they hear that in some cultures, the community and the entire community sings to these young women and tells them you're a jewel to the community. How does that make you feel? Or you're presented with new saris and garments or with jewelry. In some cultures, you're isolated for a period of time, and your grandmother is the only one who visits you and teaches you these ways to preserve your culture and your heritage, or, you're led blindfolded on a walk, and, all of these different indigenous stories from around the world. I think it just helps to bring the conversation, like separate it from yourself a little bit So it doesn't feel
Mhm.
so tied up and personal, but just kind of look at it a little bit more objectively, like, oh wow, it meant that much to certain people that they would do all of this just for having a period. And
Mhm.
then I like to go through myths and truths. So kind of
Mhm. Oh yeah. Mhm.
what are some of the stories, our cultural stories, our family stories around menstruation, but then also what are some of the stories we heard, myths, are they true? Are they fact? Are they fiction? So I just try to approach it from a discussion of, physiology and culture and heritage.
I love that. That's
Mhm.
incredible. And then, so what are the questions that a lot of teenagers ask you, and what are the myths that they think that are in play?
It was interesting because, excuse me, I had a couple of events where I was simultaneously running circles for moms and teens at the same time. And it was always interesting when they were asking some of the same questions,
Oh, really?
like pads versus tampons. And it's like, oh, wow, we're still asking these questions or having these curiosities.
Mm,
I found that teens were always shocked when I told them that pain was not a necessary part of menstruation. And that's really a challenging one to wrap their heads around because that's their story. A lot of them, that's their story. But when I instead show them, well, your body's just communicating. So let's get curious. What is your body communicating when you feel this pain or when you experience cramping or nausea or vomiting,
mhm,
et cetera, clotting, et cetera. So body literacy is always what I really like to focus on with them. And the questions they'll ask other than like pads or tampons, discharge, why do we have it? What's going on? What does it mean? What does it do? Sometimes they're curious about the color. Like if I kind of hint at, the color, there's information in the color, then they're curious. What does brown blood mean? Sometimes they are asking questions about exercise,
mhm,
especially athletes. Is it true that should I be exercising and training when I'm on my period or not? And adult women ask that a lot too. And I really the recently I saw this language that said it's a myth that women can't exercise while they're on their period. I'm like, well, it's not about can't. You can
yeah.
do whatever you want to do, frankly. However, you might want to ask yourself,
Do I want
do I
to?
want to?
Yeah.
That language, language is so powerful. Like it's not
Mhm,
about can or can't. It's like, do you actually want to, or do you believe you should, or that you have to for
mhm,
some other reason? So of course, some people say, well, it helps to relieve my cramping and my period pain. But I also would say, okay, well, we'll also track, does it increase your bleeding? Because that's something many athletes would notice too, that they're if you're having heavy bleeding and you're doing intense, vigorous activity, you might notice a correlation that if you're not doing that high impact, heavy, intense activity, you might be bleeding less. So it's all information. I really try to approach it from not do's and don'ts and shoulds and shouldn'ts, just information and do with it what you wish so
yeah.
that you can make those choices for yourself. You can eat cold food while
Mhm.
you're menstruating. You can have ice cream if you want to, but you may not like the result. And so
Yeah.
how can you realize that that power is in your hands? You get to make those choices and you also get to receive what comes with those choices and decide if that hot cup of ginger is going to serve you more than cold ice cream.
Mm, yes. Oh my goodness. It's so funny. Like nowadays, I would never have anything cold when I'm like,
Never,
just like my
never.
body is just like, nope, nope.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with exercise, even like
Yeah.
when I'm bleeding, I just don't go to the gym. And it was funny
Mm-hmm.
'cause one of the women, she was on the first day of her period, I think yesterday. And I was like, oh, I was really fascinated. I was like, oh, you're still exercising.
Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, I was like, are you sure?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the most if I happen to have like something unavoidable and I'm walking a lot and I feel that and I think people think, oh, when you're really feeling horrible, that's when you should not go out. And it's like, no, you should rest. Like rest
Yeah.
would serve you, or it may serve you regardless of what your experience of your period is. And
Mhm.
that's what was so powerful to me that I feel like everyone needed to hear. That's why I put my own story in the introduction. My
Mhm.
diet changed, and so did my period. I haven't had cramps or like a painful period. I've had postpartum like cramps. I've had experienced labor, but a painful period I haven't had since I was maybe like 19 years old. And people are really like, how can that be? How is that possible? And but still I rest. Like I have I look forward to my cycle. And I also look forward to the rest and the rejuvenation that comes with it. So I'm not resting because I'm in debilitating pain. I'm resting because that's how I honor that my
Mm.
body is working hard. My body is doing tremendous work that none of us can really qualify and quantify in terms of work output or
Mhm.
productivity.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the ways that I rejuvenate and get that deep rest that I know allows me to emerge from this season so much more energetic and ready and balanced and grounded and aligned with myself.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah.
Mm. And then, so you touched on when teens have painful periods and body literacy. So when a teenager comes to you and she's in deep pain, like how do you talk through that?
Yeah, usually the first thing, yeah, like I in my book I have like some in the moment interventions, which would be rest, warm yourself,
Mhm.
um, fresh ginger, like different herbal teas that are really great. So some teas that help to relieve pain are really great at just circulation and moving blood flow, and so that's going to help just move through the releasing that your body is trying to do, and your uterus is not working so hard to like, oh, let's squeeze this slow moving blood, this cold blood out. Let's warm up the body so there's more effortless release. And so it would be like that in the moment hot cup of tea, laying down, womb massage, massaging the womb with warming oils, or just even keeping the womb warm, keeping the feet warm would be some of the in the moment practices. And what I find, if there's a little bit of like foresight and the person's thinking, well, how do I prevent this from happening again next month? Then we can talk a little bit more about inflammatory foods. What are some of like the nutritional ways that you can support pain relief? We can talk a little bit about magnesium, and if there's some muscle relaxing, components you can bring in through herbs, through Epsom salt baths, through magnesium rich foods or supplements. And then one thing that I find with teens is that they respond really well to vaginal steaming.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, when people think of vaginal steaming, pelvic steaming, yoni steaming, however we become conscious of it, a lot of times people think it's this very like advanced, that it's only for married women, like this it's practice. And it's like it's steam and it's warming and it feels good. And anything that feels good is going to start to relieve pain, just in how the body works. But then also you have that external input of like moving blood and encouraging a really healthy release. And so even teens, even before they change their diet and have all this self-awareness and all this self-care, they'll like steam once. It's like, oh, okay, I don't feel any cramps anymore. And I'm like, when I work with women twice your age, we have so much more to work through because it hasn't been like 2 years of pain. It's been like 20 years of pain. And so it usually takes a lot more effort to get to the other side of painful periods. But yeah, teens tend to respond really well to vaginal steaming or womb steaming, which is essentially just a pelvic sauna, just exposing the body to warmth with or without herbs even. Like sometimes we complicate things and make them so difficult when it really could just be that easy. Just sit over some steam and allow the warmth to give you that relief. We
Mm.
don't usually offer steaming during menstruation,
Yeah.
at least in my training, though know some people personally find relief in that way. For some people, it could bring on more bleeding. And so that's why as a practitioner, I never advise steaming while menstruating, but before the period, I would totally recommend vaginal steaming before the period starts to help ensure that the blood flow is steady, is a healthy red color, not starting brown, not clotted, not sticky, but just really a healthy flow. And it often knocks out pain pretty easily.
Amazing. Oh, I
Yeah.
love this. And then, so when did your book come out? When did you launch it?
So it was launched on my birthday last year, September 20th.
Yeah.
Our pre-order kind of launch announcement was at the end of July. So it's been, I think we're going into our 7th month
Oh,
since
wow.
July. Well, pre-orders were August, but yeah, so it's been a couple of months on the market. We've sold close to 600 books in
Oh,
roughly 6 months, and I'm told that's good, especially for a self-published author. I'm an independent self-published author, and I don't have a publishing deal. My book is not on Amazon, so especially going kind of against the current on so many fronts, I think it's a testament to how much we need it as a community,
mm-hmm.
how hungry women are of all ages for something different, something really powerful, and just puts the tools in your hand. I remember one of my mentors read the book and she's like, "Don't hold back. Just put it all, just go there." I was like, "But it's gonna be a little bit controversial for some people." And, I'm not a doctor, so people are going to critique where am I, who am I? I'm not an OBGYN. Who am I to think that I'm suited or, qualified to put out a book on this topic? And she's like, we need it, we all need it. And if people were finding their answers from those people, then you wouldn't need to write the book. So my book is not for everyone, but for the people it's for, it's it's there. It's a real resource with the input of phenomenal acupuncturists, doctors, holistic doctors, naturopathic practitioners, board certified practitioners, homeopathic practitioners. I really felt like it was an opportunity to introduce young women and all women to all the other allies that they have. It's not just, I have a problem, I must see my OBGYN. There are so many allies in your reproductive health journey and your menstrual health journey. And I had interviews as well because I really wanted people to feel comfortable, like, oh, okay, what is an acupuncturist? What do they really do? And to know that's a resource for me. Homeopathy is a resource for me, massage. So that feels really satisfying that if nothing else, I pray that people will know that there's so many more people here to support them, and some of their tools are so much gentler and so much more effective than what they may find in their conventional doctor's office appointments.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh my goodness. The amount of times I've been to the doctor and they're like, "Are you on contraception?" And then
Mhm.
and then they just want to put you on it. And I'm like, "Well, no, and I don't want to
Yeah,
be on it." But of course,
exactly.
as a teenager, I was put on it straight away. As soon as
Mhm.
I started having sex, I was like,
Wow.
I was on the pill. Um,
Mhm.
and it wasn't until I was in my 30s, and then I just thought, I don't think I want to be on this anymore. Again, it's
Mhm.
like I didn't have the education,
Yeah.
so I stopped taking the pill, and then I got the coil.
Mhm.
It was so painful, and like that in itself is a whole nother piece as well. And we don't also talk about that the coil is connected into your cervix. Your cervix is
Mhm.
connected to your heart. So then there can
Mhm.
be all of these other experiences as well that your heart can feel really aggravated or upset. You
Mhm.
might feel, more um yeah, aggravated, annoyed. Um
Mhm.
and again, like I had no information about this,
Mhm.
and then just came to the point I remember when I was like, I think I'm just gonna get this out.
Yeah.
And And like quite a few women that I'm working with at the moment, they're having their coils taken out, and
Mm,
so much of that work then there is also about like connecting in with the cervix and
mhm.
like really,
Tending.
yeah, tending, exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
That's so much of what it does, right? It irritates, it aggravates, and it creates this like inhospitable environment for reproduction, for fertilization. And so that was another thing that was important to me is what would it be like if we just introduce teens to fertility awareness from the beginning,
Oh,
to
getting chills.
I
Ooh,
know.
oh,
Yeah, like imagine that being your
mhm,
science project in school, that I'm gonna track my basal body temperature. I'm gonna confirm when I've ovulated. And oftentimes I think, again, because everything doing with female bodies gets so over sexualized, it's like youth can know when they're ovulating, and when they're fertile. And that can be such a valuable piece of information about how to care for themselves and how to understand themselves. If you understand the physiology of what's happening, that's potent information. And it's not just like, oh, maybe I can use this as birth control. That's a separate conversation. But just knowing that if I am most fertile at this time, what can I do with this fertility? What can I do with this energy? What could I bring forth with this, this peak,
mhm,
like social skills and verbal skills and, glowing skin, what would I want to do with this fertility, and to really see it as an ally and as a powerful part of who we are, not something to be feared or put in a little box that we
mhm.
put on the shelf. And then we want to have a baby, we take it down and like, hi, fertility, where have you been? For the last however many decades, and then we don't understand why we don't have a relationship with our bodies, because we've been out of relationship, or that conversation has been totally muted by birth control, by hormonal contraception. And so that was another big aim, is like, let's put everything out there other than pain medicine and birth control. Let's just take it off of the table. Imagine the world as it was, where it didn't exist, and let's return to having just traditional wisdom and holistic alternative care that gives you so many options other than popping a pill.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this. And then, so do you teach other women how to hold teen circles?
So that's the vision. The
Mhm.
the vision now.
I can really
So
feel that.
yeah, so there's a beautiful educator in Hawaii who is writing lesson plans and curriculum for the book. And so that's one way that we're imagining if the book were to be in schools, and institutions and community organizations, that there are actual lesson plans. I'd love to see this this curriculum in schools for sure.
Mm,
So proper lesson plans that would give teachers the structure and the language that they're familiar with to really deliver the content. But more than content, I'm really interested in cultivating a facilitator training that's really rooted in embodiment. So we're not going to do any more parroting and just, spouting information that we heard or a book said is true. I would really love to initiate, and I'm planning to initiate, a facilitator training that is about one's personal womb healing, womb wellness journey, where they themselves are putting this information into practice,
mhm,
tracking how their own menstrual cycle shifts and improves, and then teaching from that space of, I'm on this journey with you, not I'm the authority,
mhm,
you are the student, do these things and I'll grade you, but know how are we in relationship with our bodies and with each other as we take this journey together. A lot of parents, they say that, I want to teach my daughter to love her period, but I'm struggling. I don't have loving feelings about my period. And I always say, what we teach from our states, we don't just teach from our words, we don't just teach from our ideas. Your hesitance, your resistance, any incongruence is going to be felt in how you show up, how you deliver, and it's okay if you're on a journey, but you also need to be transparent about that too. That, you know, I didn't have this information. I'm really struggling, but we can take this journey together. So I would really love to see, you know, community organizations and schools and institutions and after school programs, you know, being trained with me to facilitate in-person circles. I'm doing a virtual teen circle starting on Saturday, February 10th, but I really would love to see these teen circles happening in person with real people and real communities, and for people to really deliver it in a way that feels authentic and true to them, and just use the book as that kind of backbone to build from.
Yes, I'm so holding your vision.
Thank you.
I mean, it's so amazing. Every time I talk to a different woman about the work they're offering, I'm always like, I want to do it.
Me too.
It sounds so good.
I know there's so much to do. There's so much, you know, there's so much to do. I was in a class yesterday with Lisa Hendrickson Jack, who wrote the Fifth Vital Sign, and it was about her fertility awareness
Mm.
method mentorship. And there was a part of me that, I don't know. Do I want to become a FAM educator too? But you know, when you think about all of these amazing, I'm just really grateful that there are so many more women stepping into this work. And really, you know, you really do have to lean into your passion and your genius. We don't have to do everything and be everything for everyone, but we do have to fully be, you know, who we are and get really clear on, you know, the unique thing that we bring to women's work. We all don't have to do all of the things by ourselves. We can do it in sisterhood. We can do it in collaboration. And so I just, you know, I enjoyed the free class that she offered because it really is such a helpful tool if you're a practitioner to be able to teach FAM on top of whatever else you're doing. But I'm also like, you know, we can all, you know, there's room for all of us.
Yeah, and it's, as we keep saying, it's so needed, and it's like
Yeah.
each bit. But every time I talk to everyone, I'm like, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I want it. Sounds
And
so
you are a part of it, right? You are part of all of those things
good.
that are happening because, you know, there's a platform here that you're sharing and that you're educating from. So you do get a piece of that joy and a little piece of that facilitation happening, yeah, as you connect more people to all the resources available. And we need the plugs, you know, like some people are the plugs. They tell you like who to connect with and how to build that ecosystem. We need an ecosystem of compassionate, really loving women's care providers.
Yeah, absolutely. And every time I have a menstrual cycle awareness conversation with a woman that does not know this information, no matter what age she is, and in fact, I've even started doing it with my male friends as well. I'm like, oh, I'm like, oh, you have a girlfriend, do you? And I'm like, hold up.
Let me introduce you.
But it's but particularly with the women, it's like I literally see the dots connect and I see her eyes
Mm,
just go boom, 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 boom. And it's like, oh, wow, like this is possible. And I'm like, yes.
yeah.
And that it just, I mean, I'd have this conversation all day long just to for those moments because it's like, you know, that in that second something has shifted in that woman's
Mm,
reality. And like, then there's like something she's going to start looking into it,
mm,
you know, and it's just so precious and so amazing. And also
mm,
especially for the men, you know, imagine if like you're you know, whatever age you are as a male, and then you have this awareness about your partner and that actually it's not that she's just in a grumpy mood and that
yeah.
like, oh, she's got a period, keep away or everything. It's like, oh, actually like, yeah, like make that delicious meal for her and I can throw the
Mhm.
chocolate from over here.
I know. Leave the hot chocolate at the door and walk away.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I have my oldest, you know, is my I have my daughter and then I have two sons.
Mm,
And so my middle son, he is turning 9.
mm,
So, he's very aware that things happen and so I really love that he gets to grow up in a period positive household too, where it's really normal to see, period panties on the line drying and conversations about, making herbal teas and resting and seeing me wrap my waist when I'm menstruating and knowing that I'm, putting on my special socks. And, I really appreciate this opportunity to build culture around what it means to be, period positive, period aware, period conscious,
mm,
and to, he gets to be a better brother to his sister as well, knowing that, okay, there are times where she needs a little bit more space or she may be craving more of this or that. So I really, sometimes I feel like our household is so period positive. He feels like he's missing out. Like, do I
oh,
do I get anything like that? You know?
oh my God,
And
so
and
sweet.
it's like a Barbie moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where Ken is like, there's a whole nother universe out here where where men, are seen as, on top of everything and they're the default and everything else is just like subsidiary. And so sometimes I feel like, yeah, my son, he's in such a period positive household that he's like, I feel like I'm missing out on something. Like,
Oh
all
my
right,
God,
I know you're gonna have your own rites of passage thing going with when it's your time. So,
Oh.
but I'm just glad he thinks he's so comfortable around it. If he sees a stain of blood, um, or something like that, there isn't like this freak out or this concern. It's just very matter of fact. Oh, okay, that happens. Oh, okay,
Mm,
yeah, and just normalizing it.
wow. Oh my God.
Mhm. And my
You
littlest is 3. He doesn't know. Well, he's
so
almost turning 3 in a month. So he doesn't know anything that's going on yet, but
Oh, I just love it. I think it's so incredible that you're teaching your children this way, and it's like just going to have such a huge ripple on effect out in the world. And I
Mm.
literally cannot wait to read your book. Like, I
Yay.
just read the first bit that you sent me, and I was like, oh, yes, yes, yes.
Mm.
I'm going to get it for all of the children around me. All
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah, that's the vision, that we have book clubs and book circles.
Mhm.
I just got contacted from a community and they're like, yeah, this is on our book club schedule for April. And can you kick us off with like a live chat where they can meet you and online? And I was like, yeah, this is the vision that people come together, that we don't feel like there's this monopoly on information, that it feels very circular and
Mhm.
horizontal, that
Mhm.
we can pick up the book and there's prompts at the end of every chapter to just explore, and there's activities and reflection points. So yeah, it's really humbling. I feel like it's a prayer in 145 pages, like I want this for every woman. So it's
Yeah.
beautiful seeing it come to flesh and come to fruition.
Yeah. I have that same prayer with the oils. That's why I've created
Hmm.
them, just in like, oh, just every woman to have this information.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big part of it. Mm. Oh, wow. The other thing that I would really like to see in the world whilst we're doing this
Hmm.
is I feel like all of the period pants have black gussets. And
Mm.
I want to see the blood. It's
Mm.
like I want to like I don't mind if I have to wash them and like but I want to actually see the blood when it comes out. I don't want it to be
Mm.
so that's why I want someone else. I'm not going to make that. Somebody else,
No,
someone else
are you
make that
sure?
for me. I'm so sure I've got enough to be creating, but I really want someone else to make that so I can
Yeah.
have I can see the blood and like see the colors, see the
Yeah.
shape. I used to do this thing like just I would call it almost like it was how you do the tea leaves and you drink the
Mm.
tea and then
Hmm.
look at them and see what's so I used to wear white pants and then bleed
Hmm.
into them and then see what the image was
Ah.
and sort of see if I could do like a period reading.
Mm.
Completely
Interesting.
forgotten about that until this moment.
Yeah, I can imagine people are like, you're getting the white pants just to wear when you're bleeding. That's new.
Oh, and then so will you lead us in a little visualization so that uh, women can and teens can experience a little bit of your work of
Yeah, I really love to do this visualization. And so wherever you are seated, you can just kind of get comfy and start to notice your breath. If you're feeling the seat beneath you or the ground beneath you, just know that you are safe and you're anchored. And if it feels comfortable to you, you can place your right hand on your chest near your heart space and your left hand over your womb space, your lower abdomen beneath your belly button. And if you can imagine that the womb is known as your second heart, kind of breathe through how you can connect these two spaces. What would it feel like to breathe in to your heart space and exhale into your womb space? Inhale into that heart space a little wider, and then exhale, entering your womb space. And when you feel that there's a strong connection between your heart and your womb, take a moment to imagine if your womb was a room, what would it look like? You can think of a creative, imaginative space. For example, a bedroom or a garden or a greenhouse, a living room, or any room of your choice. Or you could think of your room as a more literal space. If you want to imagine the triangular shape of your uterus, if you want to imagine your fallopian tubes and ovaries, and as you have that visual in your mind of what your womb looks like, imagine your heart sending down light, showering and filling your womb space with light. If there are any dark corners or spaces that feel neglected, what would it look like and feel like to feel the warmth of light penetrating every corner, every crevice, every part of your womb space? And once you can feel a little bit more warmth and light in your womb space, imagine what could make that space even more beautiful. What would you place there to make it feel more loving, inviting, more supported, feel lighter or healthier? Would you put flowers in the space? Would you place candles? Would you add color? or your favorite scents. What would your womb space feel like if you were sitting right inside of it? Do you feel safe in that space? Does it feel beautiful to you? Warm, loving, or full of light? And if it doesn't yet feel like all of those things, what are some ways you can make that space feel more safe, loving, beautiful, and full of light? Just hold that vision a little bit longer. And feel free to release with your next breath anything that you don't want in your home space any longer. If you no longer want darkness in that space, if you no longer want pain or tightness, you are no longer wanting stagnation and difficulty, anger, sadness, or grief. Feel free to release it with your next exhale. Breathing in light and love and beauty. And exhaling what no longer serves you. Try it again. Breathing in love, light, and beauty. And exhaling what you no longer need. You can place your right hand also to your womb and offer more warmth, more love, more light, and more beauty. Whenever you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you can start to blink them and decide if you want to open them. Your eyes are open. You can start to look around. And you can hold on to your womb as long as you like until you're ready to lay your hands elsewhere.
I feel so relaxed now. Oh, that was beautiful.
Thank you for breathing with me and visualizing with me. May we have a collective womb vision for wombs filled with light, love, and beauty.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, Chantal, thank you so much. I've just absolutely loved speaking with you.
Likewise, thank you so much for inviting me, for reaching out, and I look forward to sharing this with the community.
Yes.
Mm.
How can people find you, work with you? How can they buy your book? We'll put a link to buying the book at the end of this video, but if you can just give us all of the ways.
Yeah, everything's on my website, honoredwomb.com. That's the American spelling, so no U, HONORED, WOMB.com. And that's one of the, yeah, there are not many places you can find my book. So find it there. If you're a stockist, reach out and we'll happy to get some books to you. All of the offerings that are there and on Instagram and Facebook, the same handle at Honored Womb. Same spelling as the website.
Okay, beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Chantal.
My pleasure.
Love. So,
Thank you.
thank you.